Hey guys, DC here, coming at you with another video. If you didn't think the Pokemon leak community was crazy already, we have yet another Pokemon leak that's coming to us in a very unusual way. Apparently back in 2006, Game Freak made an internal documentary detailing the behind the scenes development of Pokemon Diamond and Pearl, and they released it on DVD, distributing it to some of the employees who worked at Game Freak, and somehow some copies have gotten out onto the market. Someone bought a copy of it and partnered with Lutu to release the information within the documentary to the public. Huge shout out to Lutu and the person who bought this DVD for compiling all this together. There are over 100 scrap Pokemon designs from Diamond and Pearl released in this leak. So today in this video, I wanted to focus on the starter Pokemon and the legendary Pokemon of Diamond and Pearl. And we'll have more and more videos discussing the other aspects of this leak because there's so much here that it's too much for one video. So I think we should start out here today by looking at the original version of Turtwig, our grass armadillo Pokemon. Yes, you heard me right. Turtwig was going to be a grass type armadillo. As you can see here, it was a yellow armadillo that had a leaf for a tail, and apparently this Pokemon was scrapped because Kensugamori said they wanted the grass starter to be an animal that kids were more familiar with, so they reworked this design into this Turtwig design that we have here, which you can see this is when the idea of Turtwig, the final version of it, started assembling here. It has the same leaf on its head like we have with the regular Turtwig. It has a shell on its back. It's a turtle. Other than that, the general shape of the head is the same, but the other design elements obviously changed for the final version of Turtwig. Interestingly enough, in this leak, we don't have an image of what Grotto would have looked like here. For some reason, that just was not included in this documentary, but we do have the alternate version of Torterra, the original version of Torterra, as you can see here. Conceptually, this Torterra is pretty much the same that we got in the final Torterra. It's just the execution of it is different. You can see the trees and spikes on its shell are still present. However, the general shape of Torterra is different here. It reminds me a lot of Venusaur from the shape of its body and its head in particular. And that is something that was actually highlighted in this documentary, that apparently they changed Torterra's face to look more like the final version of it because they thought it was too similar to Venusaur's face and other flat-faced Pokemon, so they changed it. Overall, I think this was a solid design, but I think the regular Torterra is far superior here. Next up, we have Chimchar. We have these two designs here, which look rather similar to one another. They both aren't too far off from the Chimchar we got, just different design elements on it. Like one of them has a flame coming off its head, some swirly spots on its legs. The facial expression is different, but it's not that drastically different from the Chimchar that we got. However, what is drastically different from the Chimchar line is the middle stage evolution for Monferno did not exist. This version of Infernape was the middle stage evolution for Chimchar here. It was shown in the video evolving from this, then evolving into this final evolution instead, which was eventually scrapped in favor of the Infernape that we got, which I'm going to say real quick, I think the mid-stage Infernape, it looks very similar to the Infernape we got. Obviously, it's a little bit different because it's not a final stage, it's a mid-stage. However, this final evolution we got here, I really am not a huge fan of here. I'm happy they scrapped this and went with Infernape instead. Maybe if they ever did a Mega Infernape, they would take some design inspiration from this. It kind of gives me some Egyptian vibes, to be honest with you, or maybe some African monkey vibes. I'm not sure, but it looks a little off to me. We also have these two other versions of Infernape that were scrapped. I don't have a ton to say about these. One of them looks similar to the Infernape we got. One of them just doesn't look all that great to me, if I'm being honest. Next up, we have Piplup, which Piplup's earliest design has it wearing a crown on its head and what looks to be a hoodie made of soap or foam or something. This design I don't think is all that great, and I'm happy it eventually got reworked into this second design here, which is very close to the final design that we got, just with a different coloration attached to it. We can't see what the bottom half of its body looks like, but I would presume it probably looks almost identical to the Piplup that we got in the final version, just the coloration being different. This time around though, we do have an image of Primplup here, which looks very different from the Primplup that we ended up getting. I'm not a huge fan of this Primplup, to be honest with you. Like, yeah, it still has the kind of horns that split in half on its head, but otherwise the design is pretty different from the one that we got, and I think overall just Primplup is a great design Pokemon, so I'm happy this one got scrapped. For Empoleon, however, this Empoleon here, tell me if I'm the only one who's seeing this, but does this not look like it could be a regional Empoleon, like a regional variant that's a water ice type? Like, I think this is a pretty solid design. Like, overall between the two of them, yeah, I like the final version of Empoleon better, but I don't think this is a bad design at all, and it really does scream water ice ice type to me. So that's it for our starters that made it into Pokemon Diamond and Pearl, but there were actually a few starters that were scrapped from the game before Turtwig, Chimchar, and Piplup were chosen as the grass, fire, and water starters respectively. We have this grass line with the bow tie grass Pokemon, which has a bow tie made out of leaves on its body. It looks like an egg to me with ears on it. I'm not a huge fan of this design, but an interesting thing about this is an element of this design was reused in Generation 7 in Rowlet. Rowlet has a bow tie on its body made of grass, so it's kind of interesting to see that this idea originated during the development of Generation 4 all the way back when it started in 2004 for the game releasing in 2006. We have a Cape grass type starter after this, which I can't really make this one out. I'm just going to say that this is probably a mid-stage evolution for the one that came before it, but I don't know. It's kind of hard to make out what this is because it's kind of cut off and just not shown all that well. But then we have this other Pokemon, which is a grass wolf Pokemon, which to me looks like a final stage for sure. Like this one, I'm not the biggest fan of. It kind of does give me some Leafeon combined with Lycanroc vibes, but for a starter Pokemon, I don't love it. For maybe like a single stage legendary or something, looks cool, but for a starter, not in love with it. Interestingly enough, the water starter for Pokemon Diamond and Pearl was originally supposed to be this dog Pokemon that has a 2-stage line. There's no mid-stage attached to it right now, assumingly they didn't get that far in development for it, but you can see here that it's this dog that's covered in foam, which interestingly enough, if we take a look back to that original Piplup design, it seems like the foam from this dog Pokemon made its way over to the original Piplup's design before getting scrapped entirely. It has a little spike on its head, which will come into play later with its evolution. As you can see here, it grows into a unicorn dog type thing. Clearly it's based on a poodle, but this one to me looks like a water type Rapidash. Like I'm not the biggest fan of it. And overall, I think it's probably for the better that these Pokemon were scrapped. Next up, we have another water type starter that was scrapped. And I'm just going to show both of them to you right now. There's the first stage, which we can barely make out. And then there's the second stage, which looks so sick. To me, I don't think this would have worked that well as a water starter's final evolution, this amphibian-like Pokemon. To me, it looks more like a swamp monster creature, and I think it would have worked really well in one of two ways. Either A, as a legendary Pokemon for the post-game, I think this looks really cool, or B, just as a single stage swamp monster-like Pokemon that is in the swamps of Sinnoh. Like, if you introduce this Pokemon in Winds and Waves, I'd be all over it. Like, imagine you're traversing the swamp in Winds and Waves, and you just see this thing's head with its glowing eyes peering out of the swampy water. This would have been such a cool Pokemon, and quite frankly, I really love this design, and I hope they repurpose it for something else, although it does look a bit more Kaiju Digimon-like than Pokemon, but I really do like its design overall. That's it for the starter Pokemon in this leak. The last thing I wanted to touch on in this video were the legendary Pokemon here. In this leak, we only have Dialga, Palkia, and Arceus highlighted here. There is no Giratina in this version of the game, at least not yet. They didn't develop Giratina. All the Dialgas look pretty similar to the Dialga that we got in the final version. This first one here has what looks to be a crown on its head, and then the second one has what looks to be wings, but other than that, those designs coupled with the other two designs we have here, they're pretty similar to the final Dialga that we got. The same can be said for Palkia, who has 4 designs as well in this leak. The first two have wings on its back. They kind of remind me, I don't know if you guys played the game Spectrobes on the DS, but they kind of look like Spectrobes to me as opposed to Pokemon. This first design here does look really cool and does give me some Yu-Gi-Oh card vibes as well, but you can see they are quite similar to the Palkia that we got in the final version. So it seems like Dialga and Palkia both had their general designs finalized pretty early on. They had the ideas down pat, it's just the execution that was played around with. Last but certainly not least, we have Arceus. There are 2 images of Arceus here, one of which is really hard to see because only half of it is shown, and the other of which we can see the full version of Arceus here, and it looks a lot more alien-like to me than the final Arceus does. It has its golden rays, if you will, on its neck with these spikes. It has 4 eyes and just overall gives much more of a creepy vibe than the final version of Arceus does. Like, Arceus kind of gives me more of a majestic look, the majestic, god Pokemon, where this one just looks like this weird alien creature that could have come out of a sci-fi movie. But anyways, that's all of the legendaries and all of the starter Pokemon that were in this Pokemon Diamond and Pearl leak coming from the internal Game Freak documentary detailing the development for the game. Overall, for all these Pokemon, I think the final direction they went in for these mons is probably the best direction. I do think that the water starter that got scrapped that looks like this swamp monster is really cool, and I'd love to see it in a future Pokemon game, but as a starter Pokemon, I don't really think it works, and same thing with that foam dog and just the other grass type starters as well. Let me know though down in the comment section below what you guys think about all this. What do you guys think about these scrap Pokemon from Diamond and Pearl, these scrap starters that we have, the original versions of Dialga, Palkia, and Arceus, as well as the original versions of Turtwig's line, Chimchar's line, and Piplup's line respectively? Do you prefer some of the scrap designs over the designs we got in the final version of the game, or are you happy with what we got and you're fine with these Pokemon being scrapped and lost to time here? If you guys enjoyed this video, be sure to leave a like and subscribe to see more content like this from Trainer DC. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you guys next time.